Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all. So my name is Francesca Wilma, and I'm a curator here at the Crocker. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Koo Kyung Sook today. So Koo is an artist who was born in Seoul, South Korea, and who currently lives and works in Sacramento. She graduated from Hongik University in Seoul with her BFA in 1983. She earned another BFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is also my alma mater, in 1985. And then she holds an MFA from Cranbrook Academy of Art in Michigan, which she earned in 1987. Koo was a professor of art at Chungnam National University in South Korea from 1989 until 2010. In 1999 and 2006, she was awarded residencies at the Bemis Center for Contemporary Art in Omaha, Nebraska. Since moving to California in 2010, Koo has been a full-time artist. She received a James Irvine Fellowship, which is very prestigious, at the Kala Art Institute in Berkeley in 2012. And she was a visiting artist at the Shanghai Institute of Visual Art in China in 2018. Koo has exhibited her work in many solo and group exhibitions internationally. Locally, you may have seen her work at Sacramento State University at the Library Gallery. And in 2019, I had the opportunity to travel with Koo to South Korea, where I presented on her work at the Cheongju Craft Biennale, which featured one of her incredible installations. And I spent a day in Koo's home city, Seoul, where she toured me around, and it was really incredible to see it through her eyes. Koo has work in the permanent collections of numerous museums throughout the US and South Korea, including the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, the Detroit Institute of Art, the Minneapolis Institute of Art, the Snipe Museum, the Yale University Art Gallery, and the Seoul Museum of Art. Thanks to the generosity of the Kingsley initiative, the Crocker also now has a major work by Koo in our collection. So please join me in welcoming Koo to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Francesca, for the wonderful introduction. I'm deeply honored to have been selected as a beneficiary of Kingsley Initiative and to have my work included at the Crocker Art Museum's permanent collection. As a Korean artist who moved to Sacramento at a relatively late age, I have often felt like a stranger, even though I have lived here for over 14 years. However, receiving this honor has given me a true sense of belonging within the community. It is really amazing to me that Kingsley Art Club was organized by 15 Sacramento women 133 years ago. This connection with these remarkable women is truly, can you hear me? Truly wonderful, almost magical. For today's presentation, I would like to talk about 4 questions that 2 Korean students asked me a number of years ago during an interview for their art project. Here are the 4 questions. 1, what made you want to study art? 2, when did you decide to become an artist? 3, what difficult decisions did you have to make to pursue being an artist? And question 4, where do you find inspiration for your work? I thought it would be valuable to share these questions with you, as you might find them interesting as well. While talking to the first 3 questions, which are more general, I will move quickly through images so you can get a sense of the range of work that I have created during the past 30 years. When I get to question 4, I will speak in more detail about the ideas behind the work and the processes of making them. Okay, let's get started. What made you want to study art? Starting at 6 years old, I took piano lessons until 8th grade. My piano teacher discovered that I could play melody by ear. So she often complimented me on this ability, and of course, my mother thought I was a genius. My older brother, who was very close to me, was also decided to take piano lessons. Unlike me, he was exceptionally bright in almost every subject at school. So it didn't take long for him to play the piano far better than I could. While I could play folk songs by ear, my brother could play classical music without needing to read the notes. Slowly but surely, I realized that my brother was far more talented, with the result that I eventually gave up playing piano. In the 1970s, there were 2 major oil crises. The first, in 1973, caused by the war between Arab countries and Israel. And the second, in 1978, triggered by the Iranian Revolution. These events raised oil prices sharply. I was in high school at the time, and the Korean Ministry of Education decided to extend the winter vacation to save the energy. Hoping to learn something new, during the long winter vacation, I decided to take art lessons instead of piano. I went to a private art institution near my home, and from the very first day, I really liked the environment. The institution felt far less restricted in many, many ways compared to my high school. Back then, most of the high school in Korea had very strict regulations regarding hairstyles, uniforms, behavior, and so on. Luckily, my brother didn't have much interest in visual art, so I continued taking lessons until I was accepted into art college. Therefore, my decision to pursue art, at least at the beginning, was based on the need to do something that my brother could not do. Question 2, when did you decide to become an artist? During my high school years, I was deeply concerned about the kind of work I would be able to do professionally into old age. Perhaps this was the result of witnessing my relatives who were lost and confused because they were forced to retire before the age of 60 due to government regulations. Around that time, I saw a retrospective of Henry Matisse and learned that his iconic cutout works were created on his bed in the hospital during the recovery from his cancer treatment. Despite his physical restrictions, he developed a new artistic language. His ability to continue creating and producing even better work as he neared death profoundly inspired me. And it was then that art became incredibly appealing to me. During college, I realized that there were not many things I did consistently on my own besides making art. It became clear to me that I should be a professional artist. I worried, however, because many of the artists I met during my college in Korea seemed a bit crazy. hot-tempered, aggressive, or depressed. I thought I was too normal to be an artist. Despite these worries, I decided to go to graduate school because I didn't know what else I could do with such joy and passion. Question 3, what difficult decisions did you have to make pursue being an artist? There have always been difficult decisions to make at each stage of my life. When I graduated from Hongik University with a BFA, I had to decide where to go for the graduate school. After considering the options, I chose to go to the United States to find a more freer, a flexible curriculum and a freer environment. At that time, Korea was still under a military dictatorship, socially rigid and politically unstable. In order to develop and broaden my artistic experience, I decided to go to study at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. At the institute, I explored a wide range of courses in different media before ultimately going to Cranbrook Academy of Art for an MFA. After receiving an MFA, my biggest concern was finding a job that would allow enough time to continue to make art. The best option seemed to be return to Korea and apply for university teaching position. However, each time I faced such decisions, I worried about whether I was making a right choice and if I could succeed. If I had to choose the most difficult decision, it would be quitting my job as a professor at Jungnam National University, where I had been teaching for over 10 years, and moving to the United States. There were many reasons why I moved to the United States, and one of them was to pursue collaborative work with my husband, Ian Harvey, who is a painter and a professor at Sac State. We began our collaborative work in 2006 as a newly married artist couple, hoping to launch something greater than our individual visions. When I turned to 60, 41 years after entering Hongik University, I realized that all the decisions I had made over the years had allowed me to continue working as an artist. Every year, hundreds of freshmen enter Hongik University hoping to become artists, but only a very small percentage of my fellow students are still working as a professional artist. Question 4, where do you find inspiration for your work? The past 30 years of my work can be divided into 3 distinct phases based on medium. Phase 1, sculpture and installation, 1994 to 2002. Phase 2, digital projects, 2002 to 2013. Phase 3, woodcut and mixed media, 2013 to present. Each group of work presents human experience through a different medium. Each medium seems to reveal a different perspective on existence. There are 3 major sources that inspire for my work. The first is navigating experiences in different stages of my life. The second is simulating unexpected challenges in the creative process. And the third is the excitement of encountering the work of other artists. Phase 1, sculpture and installation. The series of sculptures and installation works that began in 1994 were inspired by overwhelming, especially the death of my grandmother and the birth of my son. These works explored how birth, growth, death, and decay are woven within the cycles of human experience. The natural elements, air, fire, and water, are the catalysts that transform these materials into new sculptural languages. By allowing the unique characteristics of the materials to reveal themselves through interactions with natural elements, I explored how these interactions recreate form and reveal evocative analysis to human experience. The installation, titled Silence of Dreamer, reflects the silence my grandmother was forced to maintain throughout her life under the restrictions of male-dominated traditional Korean culture. This installation consists of 20 full-size female figures created in the form of shrouded and wrapped bodies. The figures were constructed from multiple layers of nori, the seaweed used for sushi. As an organic substance, seaweed contracts during the drying process, transforming the figures in unpredictable ways and leaving a coarse, wrinkled texture. By scorching the figures with a torch, I created a surface reminiscent of oxidized minerals. In this way, my actions initiate the structure of the work, but the encounters between seaweed, water, and fire determine its final form. Subject to forces, natural forces, seaweed carries strong metaphorical power, suggesting how women's lives are deeply rooted in and determined by the natural world. My grandmother, who lived to be 94, had 9 children, 31 grandchildren, and over 50 great-grandchildren. Seeing most of them at her funeral made me realize that this was the history she had created throughout her life, a history that continues to unfold. In the installation titled Her Story, I attempted to evoke this history made by women through the recreation of everyday objects used in their daily lives. The pieces were created to look as if they were tomb artifacts, to convey the idea that the true value of a woman's life can best be seen after time has passed. To create these objects, I covered slippers, socks, and slips with layers of seaweed, stitching the fabric, the seaweed and fabric and seaweed together while wet. I then placed them in a plastic bag, allowing the seaweed absorb the moisture from the air and to grow fungus on its surface. The fungus is a sign of decomposition, reflects themes of growth and decay. In this particular piece, I scorched the surface in order to melt a synthetic thread and to create a more tactile surface. In the installation titled Trace, I created fossil-like sand molds that were cast from baby foams made with seaweed. The sand molds are like fossils that preserve the traces of once living organism. Initially, I had intended to cast the baby foams in molten iron. However, As I worked in the foundry, I realized that the casting process itself spoke more powerfully about the physical struggle of birth and creation. I could even consider the mold to be a kind of placenta left after birth. As a result, I chose the molds themselves to be the final work. While I was pouring molten iron into the open molds, it was impossible to control the splashing. The splashing iron eroded and marked the molds in a way that was unpredictable. These marks are the result of the spontaneous reactions between sand, molten iron, and air. Phase 2, digital projects. A series of digital projects that began in 2004 was inspired by a serious illness. After seeing body scans while undergoing medical treatments, I began to understand how intricate the body is as a biological collaboration between the physical and the spiritual. As an organic structure, the physical body continuously evolves in a dynamic interactions with its environment. This continuous flow suggests to me the complexity of biological and psychological flux. The dialogue between the internal and external, the physical and the spiritual, became the inspiration for my creative process. In these projects, my primary focus was to develop a method of creating imagery and finding a structure for that imagery that could suggest the experience of being. The resulting body images are composed in a grid structure using impressions produced with my own body, photochemicals, and textured materials, like bubble wrap, tinsel fabric, and plastic bags. The Invisible series addresses the intangible life of the body at the cellular level below the visual threshold, and suggests how fundamental elements like water, lymph, and blood play an essential role in our identity. To create torso images, I joined together multiple sheets of 8x10 photo paper to make a life-size matrix. After exposing the matrix to light, I covered the matrix with bubble wrap soaked in photo developer and pressed my body onto its surface. The developer and bubble wrap respond to my foam and produce an imprint on the matrix. Multiple body impressions were created in this way. Each time, the matrix was taken apart and the individual 8x10 photographs were fixed and washed. Later, I reassembled them to compose torso image by selecting 16 photographs placed edge to edge in a grid. These 16 photographs were digitally scanned, enlarged, colorized, and finally digitally printed on mulberry paper. Marking's 2007 series was created with essentially the same method that I used for Invisible. There were, however, two significant points of departure. The first was the desire to create complete figures. And the second was the decision to replace the bubble wrap with tinsel fabric. Rather than revealing the internal life of the body, Markings 2007 focuses on the external, specifically the relationship between the figure and its environment. The torsos of the previous series formed clear, if eroded silhouettes in relation to their environment. However, the figure of Markings 2007 struggled to maintain their physical identity in relation to an overwhelming environment. The contours of figures are obscured by the overall fibrous texture that permeates the entire image. As a result, the figure and its environment seem to be made of the same stuff. This identity of the figure and ground and the ease with which one becomes the other suggests the transience and instability of identity. The series titled Markings 2011 is a good example how unexpected circumstances in the creative process shift the direction of my work. The focus shifted from the physical to the psychological, transforming the image from the representational to the abstract. This series of digital prints was created during a residency at the Color Art Institute in Berkeley. The darkroom at Color was very small and narrow. Unsatisfied with impressions taken directly from my own head, I created a surrogate head, saturated the head with developer, and used it as a kind of brush to create hundreds of drawings on 8x10 photo paper. I then created each head image by selecting 20 photo drawings that, when joined together, form a distinct physiognomy. In this manner, each head is improvised from chance conjunctions found in the photo drawings. Unlike previous projects, this process of improvisation takes full advantage of the flexibility available in my methodology. This project also distinguishes itself from the previous in a way that the pool, bubbles, and swirling washes created by the developer do not have a consistent underlying texture like bubble wrap. Their chaotic rigidity is only barely held in check by the grid. Yet, paradoxically, the rectilinear lines of the grid, while creating some stability, also destabilize the image. They create a dynamic fault lines where streams and washes collide. The heads seem to be in a state of constant flux, pushed, pulled, squeezed, and drawn by invisible forces. Phase 3, woodcut and mixed media. After creating digital prints for several years, I explored various media, seeking to transcend the thin, smooth surface of digital prints, and to find a new process that would better embody my sculptural background and my interest in the physicality of materials. These explorations were inspired by two artists, Ian Harvey, a painter, and Yoon Yo-gul, a master printer from Korea. Ian Harvey's paintings are a journey into a dynamic and physical environment, utilizing a diverse range of materials. Ian creates work characterized by chaotic pores, drips, and deeply layered texture. In 2006, Ian and I began a collaborative project titled Figure, which fuses the body imagery and grid structure from my digital work with Ian's material and painting techniques. Each figure is constructed from hundreds and sometimes thousands of individual improvised paintings executed on blank business card. Using different combinations of shellac, enamel, polyurethane, synthetic gold and silver pigments, and graphite. Yunyo Gold's woodcuts have a distinctive physicality and tactile surface. Unlike conventional woodcut techniques, Yun carves textures and patterns into the background of the image so that the entire surface of the block is animated with cuts and grooves. His technique produces a highly embossed image by pounding multiple layers of mulberry paper into deeply carved wood block. In 2013, I began using Yun's method to create woodcuts based on figures and heads from my digital works. This image was originally created by arranging 198 5x7 photo drawings. Each of the photo drawings was made by dipping a wig in a developer and using it as a brush on sensitized photo paper. After arranging the photo drawings to create the figures, I traced them on a MDF wood block and then carved them with a Dremel. To give the image more physicality and movement, I used a router to deepen the background, creating a strong sculptural effect. After finishing the carving, I inked the surface and print the image by hand on a very thin Korean mulberry paper. Once the ink dried, I placed the print face down on the block and used rice glue to laminate 13 layers of mulberry paper to build up the thickness. After the glue dried, the print comes off the wood block much like a waffle. After experimenting with traditional and contemporary printing techniques, as well as painting and collage, I've recently been combining woodcut, paper casting, painting, and collage into a multimedia process. This multimedia process has resulted in large-scale works spanning up to 20 feet in length. The creation of recent work requires hundreds of 5x7-inch drawings made with two incompatible materials, pigmented shellac and water, instead of photo developer. Using squeeze bottles, I drew with water and pigmented shellac on paper. Due to their differences in density, the shellac and water dispersed in unpredictable ways over the surface of the paper. The pigmented shellac, shadowed like glass, possesses a beauty that cannot be replicated by any tool. In my work, accident generated by the unpredictable behavior of incompatible materials is a key player in the creation of the drawing fragments that constitute the larger work. When creating a work with these drawing fragments, I do not have a particular image in mind. Instead, I follow an improvisational process to combine the drawings to create an image. As we saw earlier, I first explored a grid structure to suggest the idea of collaboration between individual elements sustaining the life of the body. Over time, I came to understand that the grid is not merely a formal device, but a crucial tool between part and whole and for navigating the tension between abstraction and figuration. Each drawing fragment may appear autonomous, yet it contributes to the integrity of the whole. figurative image, when fragmented, can appear abstract, while abstract images, depending on their structure, can begin to suggest figuration. This dynamic lies at the core of my work. The grid functions as both a structural system and a conceptual foundation. This image is made of physically separated and equally sized panels that both clarify and interrupt the imagery. A tension always exists between the geometric and organic elements. The grid suggests the presence of some sort of underlying continuity and order. However, the visibility of this order is by no means continuous and is often subverted or overwhelmed by the action of the imagery. This highly flexible process of constructing and reconstructing the image into an aggregate image allows me to discover active figurative forms. In this manner, the organic idiosyncrasy of the imagery combines with the underlying grid structure to suggest dynamic yet structured movements of life. In this recent piece, after the printing and laminating processes, I worked over the embossed surface of the print with oil, pigment sticks, enamel, and gold leaf. In this work, the body is rendered through formless, indeterminate marks. The body and its identity appear and disappear in these marks. In the chaos of marks, I want to suggest that existence is not fixed or definitive, but something that flows like water, constantly changing. Existence is a fluid state. Change and transformation are the essence. Depending on the perspective, my work is a landscape that is both novel and unnovel. It is a landscape of the body and identity, one that is in a constant state of transformation and creation. Ultimately, my work placed the viewer in front of a landscape in which we are in the process of being created. Thank you. So,
there we go. We have time for questions, so if you'd raise your hand, I can bring the mic over. Anyone? Questions? Oh, Cecilia.
Thank you. This is a personal, very specific question. Do you ever do classes for teenagers?
no. No. I didn't know.
Oh, here we go.
I'm intrigued by the sculptures that you made of seaweed, of the women
Yes,
looking
yes.
like they're in shrouds. How do those become strong enough to stand on their own?
So inside, I have a metal structure. It's hollow, but I have metal structure, and just very simple, like a shape. So it holds that hollow seaweed. A hollow seaweed is strong. I mean, it keeps the foam. The problem is the moisture. If there are moisture in the humid, then it can fall down. Right?
When you design something, it starts off in your head in one way,
I don't do design.
You create, excuse me for the...
No. I don't have, I do work, 3 or 4 works at one time. So I just do it, and while I'm doing it, I found some problem. And to solve the problem, I will do whatever I already know, whatever I had the techniques or the way that I could solve the problem, and always come to the situation that none of them works. Then I have to do something totally different. So through that, it moves to the next step. So I don't have any plan for what's going to be the next work, or yeah.
Well, my question was more, as this image develops,
Okay.
and as you create this image as
Okay.
part of your being, seeing it occur as you create it, does inspiration outside of what you're doing in different areas affect how this creative edge comes out?
I think that's the 3 things that I explained. I talked to you that it's just new experience and new problem during the process, and then to see other artists' work. Anything interesting it can be visual art, it can be music, it can be performance, anything that inspires me. I think it influenced my work.
Other questions? Oh, over here.
Just out of curiosity, that you said you use business cards to do the digital painting, I think?
6 cards?
Business cards?
Oh, business cards, okay.
So is there any reason why?
Yes,
Because each business
yes,
card
there's
has
a
different
reason.
materials and then,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. When we decided to do the collaborative work, it was the idea of this collaboration. So body is a collaboration of all these visible, invisible elements in our body, and one of them does stop working, then we are in deep shit. And I think society is same. Business card is individual. So originally we were going to use real business card with the names on there, but every card material is different and size is different, we gave up. But the idea of using business card was that body as a society. And this society made with this individual people, business cards. So that's why you chose business card, yes.
So after we create the 8x10 pieces, I can see your artwork, see the kind of rhythm and similarity and the sense of unity. So you have some kind of rule or principle and combine the pieces together?
I think it's because there's a lot of things, a lot of drawings, then I see one drawing, it looks like eyes, or it looks like ears, it looks like head, something, lips or whatever, then I go from there. And then whatever connects. And so the idea, okay, so it is small enough to begin with really one element, very small part of something. So it doesn't come with, so it continuously changes while I'm working. If I change the card, change the drawing, that it changes. Yes.
Other questions? Oh, we've got one here.
Hi. It seems to me that your work is progressed, as you mentioned it earlier, from figuration to abstraction. Mm-hmm. But you said abstraction to figuration. Mm-hmm. But from your earlier work and the images that inspired you to create, your grandmother and then later on did statues of women standing. So I think in terms of what inspires you, it seems that the technique that you used over time has taken you to a new level, that you try to create a methodology that explains figuration through abstraction. That's the my understanding of your work. But so I would say the technique inspires you. The methodology, it is one that takes you to the next step. And is this something that you would continue, or you plan to continue in the future in your work?
If that's, if what I understand is right, yes, I will continue. I will continue that methodology.
Yeah, so the abstraction is the key for
I think
for your
it seems very natural to getting more and more moving to, like, I don't have those things that I want to do abstraction or I'm not a representation on, because even though it looks like abstract when I'm working, I'm just, what I see is the very much figures, begin with the figure and go with the figure. But it seems more interesting, or it's naturally moved to the abstract. It seems very natural. And then the methodology that I'm using, it helps. It really helps to go back and forth. And I like that. Uncertain, it's not really clear. I think I like that. Yeah.
Okay, we have room for one more.
Well, it definitely seems like materials are as much an inspiration as your interior seeing. And I'm curious as to whether there are some new materials that are calling you to experiment with.
New build.
Combinations or that sort of thing.
I'm always welcome. I'm really totally open. I'm totally open, but right now I'm at the stage that struggling with the materials and techniques I'm using. So I think a long way to go. And after that, or in the middle of that process, I don't afraid. I'm really open and I really enjoy all different new materials and techniques. I love them. I want to use them. I want to, as much as possible, I want to bring it. But right now, I'm in that process, so I need more time to, yes.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Koo.